Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to explore fascinating knowledge, those unexpected corners of history. Ever find yourself thinking about ancient mysteries, these huge stories of forgotten cities that were once just humming with life, really pushing what people thought was possible back
Yeah.
then? Well, today we're diving into one of the big ones, a really compelling archaeological puzzle, a place that kind of reshapes what we thought early civilizations could do. And hey, if you enjoy this kind of exploration, you should definitely check out Mind Expansion Dailies, where you can find more deep dives just like this one. Loads of fascinating stuff every day. Please do like and subscribe to Mind Expansion Daily while you're there. And look, if you appreciate the information we share here, maybe consider buying us a coffee. The link's right down there in the description. We'd really appreciate it. So, our mission today, Mohenjo Daro. It's a cornerstone, really, of the Indus Valley civilization. This ancient metropolis, it gives us this incredible window into city life, like 4,500 years ago. We'll dig into its amazing achievements, and then we'll get into the tricky questions about why it mysteriously declined. And just so you know where we're coming from, we've pulled together information from archaeological reports, scientific journals, historical texts, basically trying to get a well-rounded picture from decades of research. Okay, so Mohenjo Daro. The name often translates to Mound of the Dead. Sounds a bit grim, right?
That's
But that name, it completely hides the sheer vitality and honestly the brilliant planning that archaeologists found there. It shows a city so organized, it really rivaled and maybe even beat cities centuries later.
Oh, absolutely. What's just staggering about Mohenjo Daro, especially for its time, is the scale and the precision. I mean, try to picture this. A city covering about 250 hectares and potentially home to, well, estimates vary, but anywhere from 40,000 up to maybe even 100,000 people at its peak. This wasn't just some settlement. It was genuinely one of the largest, most sophisticated urban centers on the planet back then. It really points to a level of organization people didn't think was possible that early on.
That scale is mind-blowing, but what about the city itself, the layout? What did the streets, the buildings tell us about how all those people actually lived?
Yeah, the layout is probably its most famous feature. The excavations, they started way back in the 1920s, and they revealed this incredibly precise grid pattern. We're talking wide main streets, some up to 10 meters across, running straight along the cardinal directions north, south, east, west. This wasn't just happening by accident. It screams centralized authority, some kind of sophisticated urban planning body guiding the whole thing.
Right, planned from the top down, it sounds like. And within that grid, you have that really iconic structure, the Great Bath. What's the big deal with that?
Ah, the Great Bath. It's just a marvel of engineering for the time. It's about 12 by 7 meters and built to be completely watertight using bitumen lining the bricks. Really clever stuff. Its exact purpose, still debated. But its size, its construction, it strongly suggests something ritualistic maybe, or communal
Mhm.
bathing, purification ceremonies perhaps. It definitely shows they could manage large public works projects.
Okay, but maybe even more impressive than the bath, and something that really seems to set Mohenjo-Daro apart is the sanitation. How on earth did they handle wastewater for potentially 100,000 people?
Their system was revolutionary, truly. They had this complex network of covered drains running underneath the main streets, and these were connected to houses, which were themselves built with standardized fired bricks, not just sun-dried mud bricks. So wastewater was channeled efficiently away from living areas. This focus on public health, on a working sewage system thousands of years ago.
Mm.
It really was advanced, even compared to, say, contemporary Mesopotamia or Egypt. While those places were maybe more focused on huge monuments, Mohenjo-Daro seemed to prioritize organized daily life, public hygiene for everyone. It's quite something.
And just getting water for daily use, was that sorted too?
Absolutely. Over 700 public wells discovered so far. 700. Providing accessible clean water across the city. And here's a detail that always gets me. Many homes had private bathrooms, actual bathrooms inside the house. That points to an amazing focus on hygiene and convenience, just incredibly rare for that period. Suggests a pretty high standard of living, really.
That level of planning is just,
Yeah.
wow. It makes you think, okay, if their city planning was that advanced, what else were they excelling at? Which kind of leads us into their technology, their society. This is where it gets really interesting, right?
Exactly. Building on that foundation of organization, we find some pretty amazing things about the people themselves, their skills. Take their crafts. We see evidence of advanced metalworking, copper, bronze tools. Their pottery is often intricately painted, very fine work, suggesting a real aesthetic sense. And then there are the beads made from stones like carnelian, steatite, often etched using chemical treatments.
Yeah.
That shows a real mastery of craft. It's remarkable for the time.
Okay, so skilled artisans. What about the bigger picture? The economy, how society was structured, how did they manage resources and people on such a massive scale?
Well, the economy seems very well regulated, which, you'd need for a city that size. Archaeologists have found standardized weights and measures all over the site. Cubical weights, very precise. This points to a consistent system for trade, not just within Mohenjo Daro, but likely across the whole Indus region, maybe even further, potentially connecting with Mesopotamia. It suggests a large, integrated economic network. And socially, you see distinct areas in the city. Some parts have larger houses, bigger courtyards, maybe for the elite. Other areas have smaller dwellings, workshops, perhaps for artisans, laborers. It suggests, an organized, probably stratified society.
And thinking about keeping all those people fed, the greenery is pretty famous too, right? What does that tell us?
Oh, the granary is crucial. It's huge, about 50 by 27 meters. And significantly, it was built up high, on a platform, clearly to protect the grain stores from floods, which we know were a problem. This wasn't just a barn. It implies a really sophisticated system for collecting, storing, and probably distributing agricultural surplus. You need advanced farming and centralized planning to make something like that work for a huge city. Plus, there's evidence of cotton textile production. That suggests a diverse economy beyond just food, positioning Mohenjo Daro as a major trading hub right there on the Indus River.
It really paints a picture of a thriving, complex, incredibly well-organized place, which just makes its abandonment around 1900 BCE even more puzzling. It's one of archaeology's great mysteries, isn't it? Because, as you said, no single theory seems to completely fit.
Exactly, that's the enigma. For a long time, the sort of go-to explanation proposed by Mortimer Wheeler back in the 1940s was the Aryan invasion idea. He pointed to some skeletal remains found in awkward positions, suggesting a violent end, a conquest. But modern studies have really cast doubt on that. More careful analysis of the skeletons, the context, the evidence just isn't conclusive for a massive invasion. Any trauma could be from other causes, maybe localized conflict, not a big overthrow. So that theory is largely, debunked now among specialists.
Okay, so if it probably wasn't a sudden invasion, what are the main ideas archaeologists and historians are looking at today?
The focus has really shifted towards environmental factors. A leading theory, and there's growing evidence for this, involves climate change, specifically weakening of the summer monsoon rains. Think about it. The Indus Valley civilization depended heavily on those rains for agriculture. If the monsoons became less reliable, weaker, that would have had a devastating impact on food production. Pollen records do suggest a shift to drier conditions around that time.
Wow, yeah, that would hit them hard. Any other environmental pressures being considered?
Yes, definitely. Another related idea is that the Indus River itself might have shifted its course. Geologists like Liviu Giosan have proposed that the river gradually migrated eastward, essentially moving away from Mohenjo Daro. Imagine your city's main water source, its transport artery, just slowly moving away over decades or centuries. That would be catastrophic. And then there's flooding. We see clear evidence in the archaeological layers, thick layers of silt indicating repeated major floods inundated the city over its history. Maybe they just couldn't cope with rebuilding after one too many devastating floods. The infrastructure, even as good as it was, might have been overwhelmed.
So climate change, shifting rivers, massive floods, a tough combination. Were there other things going on too, maybe internal problems?
That's also very plausible. Some skeletal analyses have found evidence of malnutrition and infectious diseases like leprosy in parts of the population toward the later phases. So health crises could have weakened society. There's also the possibility of economic strain. Maybe trade routes were disrupted, or perhaps issues in Mesopotamia, one of their trading partners, had knock-on effects. That could lead to resource scarcity, maybe social unrest. And what's really striking when you think about these pressures building up is the lack of obvious, massive fortifications around Mohenjo Daro. Compared to many other ancient cities, it doesn't seem heavily defended. It might suggest a relatively peaceful society, perhaps one that was ultimately unprepared for the combined weight of environmental disasters and maybe internal stresses.
That raises a really interesting point. Can a society be almost too stable, too reliant on its environment? Connecting the dots, it sounds like the decline wasn't one single event, but maybe a slow unraveling, a kind of perfect storm.
I think that's the picture that's emerging. It likely wasn't sudden. You have the weakening monsoons impacting food, perhaps the river shifting, making life harder, punctuated by these destructive floods, add in potential health issues, economic problems. It becomes increasingly difficult to sustain such a large, complex urban center. It really highlights how tightly interconnected a civilization's survival is with its environment, its resources, and its ability to adapt over the long haul.
It's a powerful reminder of how even really advanced societies can be vulnerable, and our understanding is still changing, right, with new discoveries and technologies. What's been happening recently?
Oh, definitely. Research is ongoing, and new finds keep adding pieces to the puzzle. For example, a dig just last year, in 2023, uncovered more of those characteristic Indus seals, the ones with intricate animal carvings. Finding more of these just reinforces Mohenjo Daro's role as a major hub in a wide-ranging trade network. These seals are found far and wide, you see, and we're learning more about their local capabilities too. Recent chemical analysis of pottery shards, reported in 2024, shows they are mostly using local clay sources, so they were highly self-sufficient in some ways, even while being connected to this larger world.
So connected globally, but also strong locally. That's interesting. And does this new work change how we see the decline? Does it still look like a sudden collapse?
Not so much, actually. Some of the most compelling recent work, looking at the geology and archaeology together, shows evidence of resilience. It seems the inhabitants actually rebuilt parts of the city, adapted their drainage systems even, after major floods. So it wasn't like one flood wiped them out. They were actively coping with environmental challenges for quite some time. It paints a picture of a more gradual decline, a slow abandonment over generations, rather than one quick catastrophe.
So a long struggle against the environment, maybe. What are the biggest hurdles for archaeologists trying to learn more right now?
There are quite a few, honestly. A huge portion of the site is still unexcavated. Funding is always an issue, of course, but also the main building material was mud brick, and those structures are incredibly fragile. Once you expose them, they can decay really fast. And then there's the biggest puzzle of all, the Indus script. We see it on the seals, on pottery, but we still can't read it. Until we decipher that script, large parts of their administration, their beliefs, their own words, they remain silent to us. Plus, the site itself is under threat. Erosion from the rivers, salt damage in the soil, these are constant problems. That's why it was made a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in 1980 to try and focus preservation efforts.
It's incredible how much we do know despite all that. Is modern tech helping to overcome some of these challenges?
Absolutely. Technology is making a huge difference. Things like ground-penetrating radar, GPR, let us see structures underground without digging. Isotopic analysis of bones or artifacts tells us about diet and origins. And LIDAR, that's a laser mapping tech, was used in a survey just recently in 2024 to map unexcavated areas, revealing hidden streets and building outlines. These tools help us piece things together much faster and less destructively, even with all the challenges.
So stepping back, why does Mohenjo Daro still matter so much today, thousands of years later? It feels like more than just ruins in the ground. It really is a profound testament to human ingenuity, isn't it? And resilience. That incredible urban planning, the sanitation, the trade, it completely challenges older ideas about ancient societies being primitive. It forces us to rethink what was possible way back then. And all those mysteries, why it declined, how it was governed, the undeciphered script they make us think, don't they? About how fragile, even complex civilizations can be. There are real lessons there, maybe, for our own time. Studying how they manage resources, how they tried to adapt to environmental change, how they built trade networks. There are definite parallels to things we grapple with today, like climate change or managing huge cities.
It really does raise an important question for us, I think. If a society as seemingly advanced and well-organized as Mohenjo-Daro could eventually fade away, likely due to a complex mix of environmental shifts and other stresses, what does that say about the long-term sustainability of our own complex systems? It's something to ponder, isn't it? What seemingly small, gradual changes happen in our world now might, over the long term, fundamentally alter how and where we live, potentially leading to abandonment or massive shifts, just like Mohenjo-Daro experienced.
That's a powerful thought to leave things on. What do you think happened to Mohenjo Daro? Do you agree with the theories or have your own ideas? Let us know in the comments below. And please tell us where you're listening from. We're trying to help the deep dive reach people all over the world. If this sparked your interest, please do like this deep dive and subscribe to Mind Expansion Daily for more content like this. And again, if you enjoyed it and want to support us, that Buy Us a Coffee link is waiting in the description. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey into the past. We'll be back soon with more forgotten histories and fascinating facts.